Hi, everyone. My name is Jermaine from the Bay Street Oracle. Today, we'll be interviewing Neil Selfe to kick off our new series, interviewing some of the top deal makers on Bay Street. Neil, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about INFOR?
You're welcome. We started INFOR over 10 years ago, and today there's 30 of us in offices in Toronto and Calgary. We like to think of ourselves as Canada's top independent M&A firm, although there are plenty of competitors out there. But I think Bloomberg would say that we've done more deals over the last decade than any other independent firm. We cover all industries and all sectors. We specialize in M&A advisory, structured finance, private credit, and workouts. And we found that to be a very good area of focus for us over the past 10 years.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very impressive what you've built here at INFOR, and I think that your story is very interesting, and we're so excited to kind of, explore that further today. I guess I want to start with your early career and kind of like your upbringing. I'd love to hear, how you became the person you are today, and what experiences shaped that entrepreneurial spirit early on.
I appreciate that. I came from England as a teenager. I grew up in Newmarket. Still, many of my best friends are my high school friends. I'm back there a lot. I fish a lot with my high school friends. Came to the big city to get an education. Went to U of T. Thought I wanted to be an accountant, and then after being an accountant for a year or so, decided it wasn't for me, and went to law. Did law at Osgoode Hall, and then joined Osler Hoskin in Toronto. Practiced for about 4.5 years doing corporate law, and ultimately decided that what I really enjoyed was the cut and thrust of the deal, rather than papering the deal. At the same time, I had built a lot of relationships in the technology community with Terry Matthews out of Ottawa, and had the opportunity to join RBC Capital Markets. Back then it was DS, the old DS. And I was just at the right place at the right time, to be honest. It was a perfect time to make the move. Technology just began to take off.
Yeah.
And we had all of these relationships that I built up over the past 4 years that were then looking to go public. And we were able to capitalize on a lot of those transactions, and ultimately became the co-head of the technology, media, telecom team at RBC, and just had I look back at that time, and I think we did 20 years of deals in 8 years when the sector was really flying. So it was an incredible time to be a banker, and DS was an incredible place to be. It was a true partnership back then.
Yeah,
wasn't 100% owned by the bank. And so in some ways, embodied a lot of what we try to embody at INFOR today. So
awesome.
It was a great place to start it.
And in that that period, was there any notable mentors that you kind of hold to showed you these ropes that paved the way?
Yeah, I think it's key as a young person, right? You try to identify who are the leaders who make things happen. I always say to folks that in business, it's often the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. I think in investment banking, it's like 90-10. There's only really 10% of the folks that really make things happen.
Yeah.
And it's probably the same in law. And so at Osler's, I had some fantastic mentors. First and foremost, a fellow by the name of Clay Horner, who was the head of the corporate group and the chair of the firm for a long time, was an amazing mentor. Peter Day on corporate governance was a fantastic mentor, and it was just a fantastic place to be. When I pivoted into investment banking, I think I had the greatest mentor that anybody could ever ask for in Mike Wilson, the former finance minister. Mike had just left Ottawa and had rejoined DS, and he and I teamed up on a lot of technology deals together, including Nortel, which at the time was 35% ish of the TSX. So Mike and I spent a lot of time with companies like Nortel,
Yeah.
and smaller technology companies, and candidly, one of the wisest people I've ever met, and really shaped my career in so many ways.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think the decision to go into law, and then leave it to kind of join RBC as like an emerging platform. Like I understand, I think the team was as lean as 4 when you first started. What was it like taking that risk? Because you're going into something that's kind of entrepreneurial. Like RBC obviously is an established platform today, but from what I understand, it wasn't like that when you first joined. So, and it was a very exciting time as well. So what was that like?
Yeah, I think RBC was still the leading investment bank in Canada when I joined. But it was different than it is today. It was a partnership. Prior, in the years prior, the banks couldn't own investment banks, and so they were all partnerships. And I think DS was perhaps the lead partnership, run by Tony Fell, who is just an incredible person and an incredible doer on Bay Street, just a man with fantastic relationships. So we all followed Tony, but under Tony, like every firm, there were 5 or 6 fantastic partners, of which Mike Wilson was one, but others including Bryce Douglas and Jamie Anderson and people like that. So they were fantastic people to learn from. Believe it or not, we weren't organized as formally in industry groups. People crossed industry groups. There wasn't the degree of specialization that there is today. So I was fortunate enough to be hired. And I remember Gord Nixon saying to me at the time, you're going to have to learn the craft of investment banking. And so though you're older than everybody else and you've been practicing law for quite a while, we'd like you to sit in the analyst pit until you're ready to come out. And so I sat in the analyst pit for a year. Notably, one of my colleagues in the analyst pit was Scott Thompson, who now runs Bank of Nova Scotia, and Derek Nelner, who runs the capital markets business at RBC. So I was a little older, but I felt like we had a pretty good cohort. I learned a lot from them in a year. And then it was time for me to come out, and the technology investment banking team said, "Come with us." I immediately began pitching business. I think we won the first mandate that I ever pitched, and we never looked back. I just pitched business from that point on, and we won more than our fair share. I think if we look back to that period of time, we probably did more financing than any other group in Canada, more M&A work than any other group in Canada. So that's why I sort of say, right place, right time, great team, great mentors, all came together. But if you don't take the chance, if you don't look at yourself in the mirror and say, is law really for me? In my case, no, I'm going to take a chance, which I don't think many people would. You have children, you have responsibilities. Looking back, my wife says it sort of seems reckless when we did that, but it wasn't, and it worked out.
Yeah,
but you have to put yourself out there. You have to take calculated risks in life,
for sure.
And certainly leaving Osler's to join DS was the first of many calculated risks I've taken over the course of my career.
Yeah. I think I definitely want to get into that a little bit later. I think you've taken a lot of risks, but clearly it's paying off. So, in your time at Osler's, I guess, how did that set the foundation? You're seeing transactions from a legal standpoint. Did that kind of dictate that you want to see the other side of the deal?
Yeah, it certainly dictated that I wanted to see the other side of the deal and be involved in originating and negotiating the business aspects of the deal, not just the legal aspects.
Yeah.
But I think good lawyers sort of transcend law. Good lawyers are also good relationship people, good business people, and so it was a natural stepping stone. For me, I always enjoyed business development.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed coming up with ideas. And it felt like investment banking was a better place for me to channel that interest and those energies than law.
Yeah. And I guess, like, to sum up your time at RBC, is there a transaction that sticks out to you that like an experience that you kind of hold dearly, I guess?
Oh, there were many.
Yeah.
There were many.
You had to pick one?
Yeah, it's hard to pick one, but
Yep.
um, one of my favorite stories is a company called Metronet Communications, which was basically a startup that
Yeah.
owned some fiber between Calgary and Edmonton. We seized upon the U.S. CLEC market and what was happening with CLECs in the United States. Providence Equity Partners, which is one of the top private equity groups in technology, media, telecom, came to
Hmm.
the table. We raised Metronet about $4 billion over a 3-year period.
Wow.
And in year 4, sold them for close to $7 billion in a structured transaction to AT&T.
Hmm.
Along the way, we bought Rogers Network Services for $1 billion from a billion point one from Ted Rogers.
Wow.
So point one was very important. I still remember walking up Jarvis to Ted's office with the CEO of Metronet. And he says to me, "What do you think what it'll take to get this deal done?" And I said, "Well, I think the asset's worth 300 million, 400 million, but I bet you Ted doesn't sell it for less than $1 billion." And we had very high price paper at the time, and so he went in and he looked Ted right in the eye and he said, $1 billion. I want to buy Rogers Network Services. And I could see Ted sort of smile. At that point, Rogers sort of needed the money.
Yeah.
But he looked him right back in the eye and said, $1 billion one, and not a penny less. So we bought it for $1 billion one.
Yeah.
But we probably overpaid by a multiple of 3. But we were ultimately able to get AT&T to pay even more shortly thereafter, and so
Balances out.
so that was a fantastic transaction. But there were others, working with Nortel, taking Celestica public.
Yeah.
Celestica was the largest tech IPO in the year that we took it public.
Mhm.
But then merging the telcos, merging EdTel with TELUS and TELUS with BCTel,
Yeah.
to create TELUS, folding in ClearNet to create a national wireless brand for TELUS. They were all pretty heady times. That whole period from 95 to 2002, 2003 was a fantastic time to be in technology, media, telecom.
Yeah. It's such a high growth period, and like to be kind of shaping the industry and see what these companies become today, I imagine it's very rewarding
It was
in
cool.
retrospect.
It was very cool.
So this kind of segues into our next topic, but you talked about taking calculated risks. You built out this really large platform, helped build out this platform at RBC, eventually rising to head. And then you leave and start Diversified Global Asset Management.
Yeah.
What was that like? I imagine it was an interesting and exciting time, but you also left a platform that you really helped scale. So what was that like?
It was really, really hard. The DS platform was a fantastic platform, and many of the lessons I learned about partnership and running a business comes from the partners at DS. But I think I made just enough money to be dangerous, as Chuck Winograd said to me once. And I always had in mind that I needed to work for myself and build a business myself. What I enjoyed doing more than anything at RBC was helping entrepreneurs build businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that I admired the most were the people that built really big businesses from virtually nothing, like a Ted Rogers.
Yeah.
And so I always had it in my mind that I wanted to give that a shot. Along the way at DS, I met some folks that were doing some very interesting things in asset management, and thought that there was a way to build a new edge asset management firm utilizing technology, and so planned that, hired some folks, and ultimately left RBC and began DGAM. I left RBC on a Friday and I walked into the DGAM office on a Monday, and we started at it.
Yeah.
But it was very, very challenging. I thought that I had lined up 2 clients to back us, each who had committed to give us $500 million initially to manage. So it looked like we were going to have $1 billion launch. It took us 6 to 8 months to build the policies and procedures and hire the people that we needed. and to build the technology platform that we needed. And then when we went back to them and said, now we're ready, we built it all. Not one, but both of them said, sorry, we can no longer meet our commitment. And so I'd left RBC, I'd invested a significant amount of time and effort. I brought over, 10 plus people.
Yeah.
And we had no money to manage. Luckily, we went hard. We got on planes. We traveled around the world. We told our story.
Yeah.
And we found two new lead investors. One was Aimco out of Alberta, and the other was ABP, the Dutch pension plan. So we really went far and wide. But there was nothing more stressful in my business life. There's other stresses in life, but in my business life, there was nothing more stressful than that period of time between losing our first two clients and gaining our first two new clients.
Yeah.
That was that ate up a lot of heart muscle. But we ultimately were able to pull it out of the fire, and we built an amazing partnership at DGAM that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and like noting even like the exit to Carlisle, obviously the platform was doing really well for itself.
Yeah.
And it's just so exciting to see building that from scratch, and it's definitely cool. I think what was like the turning point where like you knew that you wanted to do this, and getting up and actually leaving RBC to go start this venture? Like how did that come to be? Where did the idea initially come from?
I'd always been interested in asset management.
Mm-hmm.
DGAM was an interesting business. It sort of married both indexing, which today you would refer to, at least in the retail sense, as ETFs.
Yeah.
And hedge funds. And so we built a platform that managed portfolios, custom-built portfolios for large corporate issuers, and overlaid that with a hedge fund to funds platform where we had approximately 40 risk-adjusted hedge funds that we had invested in. The technology and the risk management to do that was not trivial. It was tricky.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting at RBC, I developed a love of technology. I developed a love of asset management or finance, and saw this developing in other countries around the world, and thought it was that we could build a world-class team here in Canada with people primarily out of the pension plans, but also out of some of the private asset managers here, and build an offering that was truly global. Most of our clients at DGAM were foreign, were from outside of Canada. 100% of our investments were outside of Canada.
Wow.
So it involved a lot of travel, but it was really an international business that happened to be based in Toronto, which I'm grateful for the partners that helped us build that platform.
Mm-hmm.
Candidly, I left. I sold my stake after about 3 years.
Yeah.
And so the firm continued to grow after I sold it, with the help of a number of U.S. institutions and the partnerships and the partners that stayed there.
Yeah.
And so it experienced tremendous growth while I was there, but the team continued to grow and do well after I left and returned to banking.
Yeah. And what was that point, like turning point, where you decided you wanted to move away from this? Obviously you built up this platform, and then you decided you wanted to go back into banking. What was the thought process there?
Yeah, I would say business. In business, it was probably the toughest decision that I've made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately it came down to what do I like to do?
Yeah.
It was incredibly lucrative. And I think owning an asset management firm, if you do it right and you do it at scale, is probably a more lucrative business than investment banking, as lucrative as investment banking is. But I found that it didn't feed my creative juices.
Mm-hmm.
I would every week get on a plane and travel the world, whether it would be to Asia or Europe or wherever, to pitch pension plans an idea or a couple of ideas. But it was always the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed meeting those folks at those pension plans. I enjoyed meeting the corporate treasurers, but I was pitching a single idea every day and traveling like a fiend to do it. So it was incredibly lucrative. I left a lot of money on the table, and I knew I was going to leave a lot of money on the table by leaving when I did. But I wanted to get back to building companies with entrepreneurs. When I look back at my career, whether it's, accounting, law, asset management, investment banking, what I really like to do is to help entrepreneurs build something from the ground up and hopefully create something that has significant value and social utility, and that it employs a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And particularly if it has an international aspect to it, really contributes to Canada.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get back to doing that, and was able to exit DGAM on appropriate terms, and be fair to our partners.
Yeah.
Before I left, we went to every partner, we went to every investor and said, this is what Neil plans to do. If any of you object, he'll stay. I don't know. Perhaps it says something about me. They all said, no, let him go. So I left and I went back to doing what I really like to do, which is working with entrepreneurs.
Interesting. And I guess like your decision to return to banking, joining GMP, what was the rationale there? I understand. I think you rejoined some of your old colleagues.
Yeah. And at that stage, it was really calculated, because in my mind, I knew two things.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be an investment banker and work with entrepreneurs. And I knew also that I wanted to own my own business, and chart my own course. Mm-hmm. So those were two touchstones that I knew I was ultimately going to come back to. RBC was a fantastic place to learn the craft of investment banking, but the bank had already bought it by the time I arrived, and so it wasn't really an independent dealer. And independent dealers do work very differently than bank-owned dealers. The types of deals you do, the types of relationships you have to build, or that you seek to build, the types of relationships you seek to build are really very different, I think, than in approach than what a bank would take. And so at the time, GMP was the top independent investment dealer in Canada. And I said to myself, listen, I'm going to go there and I'm going to learn what I can about the independent dealer world, with a view that at one point I'm going to exit and try it to build my own broker dealer.
Yeah.
I think what I learned there was very, very valuable, both in what to do and not what to do. And so when we started INFOR, we really took the best of DS, and what I learned at GMP, and put it together to build a focused advisory firm.
Yeah.
But I needed that step. I needed that education on what the independent world would look like.
Yeah.
Before I went out and built an independent investment bank.
So setting the footsteps early, but being calculated while you're doing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And you joined GMP initially thinking it was going to be a short stint. I think I read online, and then also initially joined to build out the London office. So how was that endeavor?
Yeah, so the principals of GMP asked me to join to look at international expansion, and I helped them build out the London office, and then focused on technology, media, telecom, my old stomping ground, but added to that financial services and structured product and healthcare banking. As I said, I had in my own mind planned for it to be perhaps a 2-year stint.
Yeah.
It ended up being almost 3 times that. And I think life just got busy for me, candidly. We had 4 children. I promised each of them that I'd coach their soccer teams at least for 2 or 3 years,
Mhm.
and I made that commitment. I met that commitment. It was a great time uh, to practice the craft of investment banking, but also have time for my family,
Yeah,
which ultimately is more important than anything,
for sure.
obviously. And so, what turned into a 2 year stint ended up being a 6-ish year stint, um, um, because uh, I just felt it was a comfortable place to be.
Yeah,
But the desire to ultimately build a business never left. And when the time was right, myself, together with a number of the folks that I had hired at GMP, decided to leave and build a different business, a business that's quite different than GMP, which I think has allowed us to survive and prosper for the last decade.
yeah. And during your time at GMP, I guess, do you think building out those relationships with different FIs at DGAM, did that pay any dividends going forward?
So over the last 20 years,
Yeah,
we have seen private markets come to the fore, and in many cases really rival public markets, whether that's in private equity or today private credit. When I was growing up in investment banking in the early days, there was Onyx and a couple of Ontario teachers and a couple of pension plans in Canada. Private equity wasn't really a thing.
mhm,
It became a thing in the period of time from 2000 to 2010. And then there was a plethora of other private products, whether it be infrastructure, real estate, and most recently private credit, that have really grown by leaps and bounds. So DGAM as a fund of funds gave me relationships and insight into all of those trends globally, and all of those firms globally. And so when I came back to banking, I was able to pick up the phone and call David Shaw at DE Shaw. I'll call Kenny Griffin at Citadel,
mhm.
or call Jonathan Nelson at Providence Equity Partners. And in fact, I think one of the more creative ideas we had was to take BCE private, which would have been the largest LBO in the world if we had managed to work it. And there were many aspects of that deal, but one of them was me calling Jonathan Nelson, which was a relationship that I built up
Yeah,
from Metronet and kept through DGAM, to say, Jonathan, we should think about taking BCE private. And we worked on that transaction for 2 years. Ultimately, the financial crisis meant that it didn't happen. But it was the relationships that I kept and held in the private markets
yeah,
that enabled me to put that idea forward and take it as far as we did.
yeah. No, that's very maybe one of the biggest what ifs I think in the Canadian industries.
Definitely a big what if. I still remember I was barbecuing in Greece with my kids all running around and my wife's relatives, and I got a call from the guys at Providence and said, "We just want to give you a heads up.
Yeah,
This is not going forward." And we had a 15-minute conversation. I hung up the phone
yeah.
and I said to my wife, "It's going to be hot dogs for a while. This one's not going to happen."
A stressful 2 year period, I'd imagine, is probably was always on the back of your mind at that point.
Yeah. But it sort of speaks to investment banking. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
But you got to get up to bat. You got to get up to bat and got to take your chances
yeah,
and shoot for the moon.
yeah,
And be as creative as you can for your clients. Not all creative ideas come to fruition, but if you don't put yourself out there and get in the batter's box,
yeah,
you don't get a chance to hit it out of the park, right?
for sure. Like if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
And so I guess segueing that into Infor, very excited to speak about what you built here. Timing, execution, scaling. I'd love to hear the execution standpoint, like how you went about this.
Yeah, so I said, I really wanted to be involved in a business that helped entrepreneurs build a business
Mhm.
or an entity of scale. Investment banking is very tough in Canada. You have the global banks, you have the Canadian banks, And those 6 Canadian banks are ferocious competitors, as are the global banks.
Yeah.
And they have a plethora of tools in their arsenal to compete with, of which their balance sheet is the most formidable tool.
Yeah.
That they have, and 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 so that was factor one that I considered before jumping back into investment banking and building a firm. But also factor two was the changing market dynamics. Digitization of the asset management and investment process meant that there are way fewer independent asset managers buying small to mid cap companies than there were in the past. Large companies benefit from being part of indexes, being part of ETFs. Smaller companies don't have that luxury. At the same time, the trading business changed significantly. You no longer make money on trading. Trading became a cost center.
Mm-hmm.
Many firms did it for free, and some firms, some of the large global firms, actually pay you for flow, and so they pay you to trade with them. So it used to be that research, sales, and trading, as a rule of thumb, kept an investment bank solvent, and the investment banking business was the gravy on top. It's what really paid the bonuses. But all the operating costs were covered by research, sales, and trading. That changed. Research, sales, and trading became cost centers.
Mm-hmm.
And they became commoditized, necessary, but commoditized aspects of the whole investment banking process. So when I sat back and said, I got these, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be competing with these global banks and these Canadian banks.
Yeah.
I have nowhere near the resources that they have. At the same time, I've got research, sales, and trading as a cost center, no longer really contributing to my revenue base. What kind of business can I build? And it became apparent that, and that's just really self-evident, that if you were going to build an investment bank in Canada, you needed to build a focused advisory firm. You needed to be a full broker dealer to take advantage of public markets where you could, but it would have been foolhardy to build out, I think, research, sales, and trading to compete with the incumbents. So we created a different. We took advantage of a different model, which is the advisory model. We focused on M&A. We focused on restructuring. We focused on private credit. We focused on private equity. Once in a while, we'd poke our heads up in frothy markets and participate in the public markets where we could.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't build research, sales, and trading like a number of our competitors. And as a result, it's been 10 plus years. We have been profitable every single year. We think we pay our people absolute top dollar relative to the banks. We think they have a better lifestyle. We think they get to do more creative work here than at the banks.
Yeah.
And get exposure to clients earlier in their career. And we think we've built and as a result, we've built a really sustainable business. But it probably was the only model, I think, that worked. Along the way, over those 10 years, many other banks have started or failed, and many incumbent independent banks have either merged or dissolved. And I think it was in large part because they had a legacy business built around the old model of research, sales, and trading.
Yeah. And I actually want to get to that with like the increase in consolidation. You see a lot of the independent dealers, like lots of mergers going on in the space. What do you think has allowed INFOR to be so successful remaining an independent platform, especially like over like the last 5 years? I think you see a lot of consolidation in the Canadian market.
Yeah, I think it was really in how we built the firm.
Mm-hmm.
And again, borrowing from all of my prior experiences from law through to RBC, through to DGAM, through to GMP.
Yeah.
we decided to focus on very senior people.
Yeah.
My partners that run our mining team are some of the best mining investment bankers in the world with, 30 years plus of experience. My partners who run Calgary are some of the best oil and gas and renewables bankers in the world with 30 plus years of experience. And so we targeted as relationship builders, established investment bankers with deep, deep relationships built over decades. We then didn't try to be all things to all people. We didn't go to folks and say, we're going to offer you research. We're going to offer you liquidity in your stock through trading. That's not who we were.
Yeah.
And we had to check our egos and let others take those deals. It hurt. And if you're a competitive person, it always hurts when you see one of your competitors do a deal. But I had to look at my partners and go, no, that's not our course. That's not the course we're running on. Let those guys do that. We're going to go over here and we're going to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on M&A. We're going to focus on restructuring. We're going to focus on private credit, focus on private equity. And that focus, together with the relationships that our partners were able to bring to the table, and the partnership that they built themselves, because they're all fantastic people who all get along and work together, I think has enabled us to build a culture of excellence and partnership that has enabled us to be very successful over the last decade.
And in going forward and just continuing to foster that growth and continue to scale the business, how are you looking to bring in for going forward, like on a larger scale?
Yeah, so from our perspective, we've done very well at capturing market share in Canada. And I think when you look at the addressable market, if you look at the whole market as those who are going to pay investment banking fees, probably only 20% of those people, those companies, are going to deal with an independent firm, right? For various reasons. They have big lending relationships with the banks.
Yeah.
The banks will pressure them to give them their investment banking business. So the addressable market for an independent firm is not the same addressable market that it would be for one of the big banks. Our addressable market, in my view, roughly is 20% of the overall investment banking market. And then if you look at what INFOR captures of that market for the products that we offer, I'm not sure that there's a ton more that we can capture. And in fact, the market's shrinking. If you look at the number of companies that are listed on the TSX, we're down 35% in 5 years. And so I do have a fear that I'm going to wake up in 3 or 4 years and look at my partners and say, well, we pretty well sold everything that there is to be sold. What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And so our focus is to turn internationally. I think you'll see us in the next year reach out to other geographies. Probably for sure the United States and Great Britain, but also I think we're looking at establishing a small presence in Tel Aviv, in Johannesburg, and Bermuda, with very senior bankers that we have known for a long time, that have great relationships but don't have the ability to execute like we do. So what we have is a fantastic engine that we built over the last 10 years that is very efficient at doing excellent work.
Yeah.
We now want to take that engine global by partnering with senior bankers, which is how we've been successful globally, starting with the United States, with England, with South and East Africa, Israel, and the Caribbean. And so I'm giving you a little bit of prelude as to something you'll, I think, see in the next 90 days.
Yeah.
But that's our plan for growth going forward. And what's really made that, what's going to enable us to do that to a large extent is how efficient we are through the use of AI, which is a whole different topic. But
yeah.
I don't think that we would have been able to make the leap and go international as we plan if we hadn't built a 10-year track record of execution
Hmm.
and the processes that that we have adopted to do that
Yeah.
now being made more efficient through the use of AI and other technology tools. So we've always seen ourselves as very technology forward,
Hmm.
and I think AI is going to be the great enabler that enables us to take what we've built here in Canada global.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It sounds like you have some very exciting plans. I think, this year was your 10-year anniversary of the firm. Is it largely always been the same, just on a larger scale, or have you changed up operations over the years?
No, it's largely been the same. I would say, maybe the same but different. We started really small. There were 4 of us in a room. Today there's a little north of 30 of us in a couple of offices, with many new offices to come. Um, but I think we knew what kind of culture we wanted to build. I think a lot of independents are known to have a very cutthroat culture.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to build that type of entity. I wanted to build an entity where partners cared about each other, and where they were professionally aggressive externally in getting business,
Mhm.
but not aggressive inside the firm. I wanted to build a place where people felt that they could be mentored, and that not only could they earn very good monetary compensation,
Yeah.
but they were growing as people, and growing with good people.
Yeah.
We see the world similarly, and it's a fantastic partnership. And so I say same but different. So the same is they're great people, they're great partners, they're really, really good at what they do.
Yeah.
There's just many more of them.
Thank you. And in terms of maintaining these relationships, and you're competing in such a cutthroat environment, how are you staying in front of clients and, continuously giving your ideas? Like, what is the execution role there?
Yeah, we're constantly in front of clients. I would say we differ a little bit from the banks. The banks have a huge number of relationships. The commercial banks have a huge number of relationships. They have very complex CRM systems.
Yeah.
They have their bankers go out and log what calls they're making to their lending relationships. We don't lend. So if we're going to go to a meeting, it's because we got something to say.
Yeah.
It's because we've got an idea that's executable. We don't show up with a book and say, here's 5 thoughts, and try to engage a client. We'll call the client ahead of time and say, I've got an idea for you.
Yeah.
Does it make sense for me to come over with my team and put some more meat on the bones? Most of the time they say no. But thanks for thinking of us.
Yeah.
Right. But what we don't have is juniors building books to then go to the client, and the client go, yeah, no, that's not what I want to talk about. If we walk into a client's office, it's because we have already gone to them with the idea,
Mm-hmm.
and they've said, we want to hear more. So a lot of calls, a lot of breakfasts, a lot of lunches. I think I worked still 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm on my phone all the time. My clients are now my friends, though, so I enjoy speaking with them, whether I'm on vacation in Greece or traveling down to Barbados, or I can't tell you how many calls I've had from the back of my fishing boat in Barbados, where the client doesn't know I'm there, but just wants to have a chat, and it doesn't really matter. And so I think we work differently. I think COVID has made us work differently. We don't have to have as much FaceTime as we once did. But if we have FaceTime, it's because there's a reason that, and we have an idea that the client has asked us to talk to them about. It's not just showing up for the sake of showing up. And I think if you ask our younger people here, they would say that's where we're quite different than the banks. The banks, like to throw, like to monitor FaceTime with clients. We like to monitor getting transactions over the goal line. And if we're in front of a client, it's because they want us there not because we've forced ourselves upon them, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that topic of COVID, how was navigating that in obviously a very big period of uncertainty at the firm? What were some of the challenges you faced in that time period?
Yeah, it's a good question. It seems like a surreal time when we look back.
Yeah.
It was a very, very difficult time in because particularly for us, we in both of our offices work in one big bullpen. I don't have an office. I sit in the middle of the room with everybody else, and our junior people learn off of all of us by watching us, listening to our phone calls. If we want something done, we yell a couple of desks over, all just get together in front of a desk and we have a conversation. COVID made that very, very difficult. I also think for young people, it made it it was a very hard time.
Yeah.
It wasn't so hard for us as senior people, but for young people who graduated from university, bought into learning in a team environment, focused on getting ahead in this industry, and finding themselves now captive in a 500 square foot apartment in downtown Toronto. It was a really, really difficult time.
Yeah.
And so I made sure that I reached out to our young people very frequently, often multiple times a day, just to make sure that they knew they were that we loved them, that they were respected, that they were needed, and just to check in to make sure they were doing okay.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a really difficult time for that generation of kids that had just graduated. And for that reason, as soon as we could, we sent everybody back to the office. And I think we were probably the first investment bank to say people back to the office. It wasn't because we felt like we needed to have them back to increase productivity. It was because we felt that it was best for their own mental health,
Yeah.
and their own learning and mentorship that they were back and working with us all. And they reacted really well to that. I had a couple of our analysts and associates say to me, Neil, I didn't really understand, and and you said everyone's got to be back. I wasn't sure that I wanted to come back, but I'm glad you made the decision for me.
Yeah.
Because left to my own devices, I'd probably still be at home ruminating whether I wanted to come into the office or not. And you said, no, you got to be here. Now I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm learning.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's also made us a little wiser. And so we work differently. If there's a long weekend, every Friday in our office is work from home optional. So it turns every long weekend into a 4-day weekend. People know they can plan ahead for that. And there's quite a few long weekends in Canada. So those are 4-day stretches that you can plan around. We don't really keep track of vacation here. We do notionally, but we don't. We know that people can work as well from home as they can here.
Yeah.
We think it's better that they're here because we think they learn a lot more.
Yeah.
We don't have to force them to come. They want to come because the place is energized and this is what they like to do and where they like to be.
Yeah.
But it's made us a little bit more flexible and a little bit more understanding, I think, in terms of how we deal with our people and how we mentor them. So there's a positive side to it, but it was a very, very difficult time, I would say, for your generation in particular.
Yeah. And your team is the powerhouse of INFOR at the end of the day. How do you nurture that talent and continue to develop the juniors over time? Like, what are some of the things that you think are unique to INFOR?
I'm not sure it's unique to INFOR, but we really try to hire very good people.
Mm-hmm.
I learned long ago that often the most successful people are B students that can communicate really well.
Yeah.
And I think the world is run by really great communicators who are B students, and there's lots of A students who are working for them. And so marks are really, really important when people apply here, but they're not what defines who we hire.
Yeah.
What defines who we hire are people who are capable. Listen, I can teach investment banking to anybody in 6 months. It's not rocket science. Right? I can teach anybody in investment banking in 6 months or less, for sure. What I can't teach is innate communication skills and the ability to make relationships. And so if we use marks as a guide to get people in the door, but ultimately the people we hire are the people who we can envision going for a beer with, not just after the interview, but for months and years afterwards. People that we like, who are going to resonate well with our culture, who we know are going to resonate well with our clients. And we really put an emphasis on that in the hiring process. And I think that's our hidden strength.
Yeah.
We've hired really great people. Shortly after we formed INFOR and had our first, 3-4 years in, I happened to be here late at night, and one of the young analysts said to all the other young analysts, who needs a hand? It was 10 o'clock at night. Who needs a hand? And I said, that's really cool. He goes, no, we do that every night. Nobody leaves without asking everybody else, can we be helpful?
Yeah.
So that no person is stranded working here till 3 or 4 in the morning while everybody else is at home.
Yeah.
And we didn't teach them that. I didn't ask them to do that. But I think it's a function of the people that we hired. We hired good people who had a great sense of camaraderie.
Yeah.
And were just really, really good teammates. And I think that's been our core strength. Picking the right area, being relentlessly focused on what we do, and then just hiring really good people who like each other and work together as a team.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's definitely important. Camaraderie, I think, is a big thing, and it's not as hard to work and be invested in your work when the people around you have the same feeling. So to know that you're all in together is a big component, I think.
Yeah, sandbox rules, right? Well, ultimately it comes down to what we learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And if we learned those lessons well, and we're good partners and we're good teammates, that's the stuff that you can't teach.
Yeah.
Investment banking is not rocket science. You can teach that to almost anybody.
And yeah, I want to be mindful of time just to make sure like we're still good. But I'd love to talk about your accomplishments outside of INFOR and in your career. I think you've done a lot of good charity work, and I'd love to hear about some of the initiatives that you're close to, and why those are so important to you, and what you're proud of in terms of that sense.
Yeah, I think it's really important to give back, right? And first and foremost, you give back to your family.
Yeah.
There is a reason why we do this. It is so that we can enjoy family time. There's nothing more important to me than that, and I'm blessed to have a wonderful wife who I met on the first day of the first year of university, and has been with me ever since, and 4 fantastic children. A lot of people talk about spending quality time with their children. It's important to spend quality time, but you need to be there when they fall over, and it you can't put it off. So it's quality time is important, but you also need to spend time. You need to spend time doing mundane things. You need to spend time coaching the soccer teams and going to the track meets. And what I think I'm most proud of is always prioritizing those interactions with my children and my family over business.
Yeah.
It gets a little easier as you get older, because you can say to a client, sorry, can't do that meeting. I got a track meet I got to go to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't do that meting. My kid's got a soccer tournament or a tennis game that I have to be at. So it gets a little easier, for sure. But I think you have to make time for your family. and if you do it right, it pays unbelievable benefits. Then I think you have to get back to your community if you're fortunate and blessed and able to do so.
Hmm.
In the early days, I spent a bunch of time on the board of CAMH. That was primarily because of Mike Wilson, who I mentioned earlier. Mike was a massive influence, positive influence on bringing awareness to mental health and addiction issues in Canada,
Yeah.
and encouraged me to get involved, and I was happy to do so. Subsequently, I I became a close advisor to Bill Holland, who donated a significant amount of money to Holland Bloorview, which is the top children's rehabilitation hospital in Canada and one of the best in the world. I've been on the Holland Bloorview Foundation board now for over a decade. I was the chair of their most recent campaign, and I love walking around that place and looking at the children now that my own children are grown,
Yeah.
and making a difference. It's honestly very hard to walk through that place without tearing up, and so I could get a great deal of personal satisfaction in giving back to Holland Bloorview, as well as spending time with my own family. And I think if you've been fortunate, as I have, and as many of us have here at INFOR, it's incumbent upon us to prioritize family and prioritize community over business when we can. And
Yeah.
I think we've embedded that into the INFOR culture. I'm happy to say that a lot of my junior partners, VPs, and junior partners are all actively involved in their community, and are all building wonderful families as well, that we all get to spend time with.
Beautifully said. I think it's very commendable what you've done outside of work, and it's good to see that those are your main priorities. It's beautifully said.
Thank you.
I think one question I would love to wrap it up with is I'd love to hear your advice for the next generation. I think you've got a wealth of experience. It's great to hear like a reflection and what you can say to those young go-getters out there who have that entrepreneurial spirit, and might look up to your story.
Yeah, I think you gotta strive for what makes you happy. That doesn't mean that you just got to do what makes you happy in the moment. But think about your life and think about where you want to be when you're 50 and when you're 60, and what you want to accomplish, and then set about the path of accomplishing it. Somebody once said to me, "Be careful what you wish for you will surely get it." So think about where you want to end up, and then aggressively plot your course to end up there. So that's very different than saying, go with your heart, do what's going to be fun. And a lot of what I did in my early days was not fun. A lot of long hours, a lot of work that I hated. But I always knew that I wanted to have a fantastic family. And as I got older, spend time with my kids. I always knew that I wanted to travel. I always knew that I wanted to get back to my community. And I always knew that I wanted to be relatively wealthy, candidly. And with that goal in mind as a long-term goal, I made many short-term decisions in the short term to help me get there. Not all of them were the right decisions, but they were always made with that goal of a degree of financial independence while not compromising family or community to do it, right? And so what I say to young people is look in the mirror, think about what you're capable of, think about mentally what you're prepared to do to get there, and then go for it, right? Take risks, take chances, work incredibly hard towards the goal that you're set for yourself. And everybody's goals can be different. It might be that you say, listen, I don't care about money at all. What I really want to do is help build a social enterprise. Or it might be that you say, listen, I want to work for somebody else. I don't want the pressure of being an entrepreneur. I don't want the pressure of building a firm. I want to work for somebody else. I want to earn a decent living, but it doesn't have to be top of the heap. And I want to prioritize family, and I don't have, I I don't think I'm made to have the pressure on me to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely okay. So my advice to my own children and to young people that come and see me, which I mean, every week a few young people come and see me and say, help me understand how I can get to where you are. And I said, well, first of all, you have to want it. Is this where you want to be? I think, and the advice I always give to young people is, think about what's going to make you happy. Try to understand yourself, what makes you tick. Think about what's going to make you happy, and then go after it. But it doesn't mean that everybody needs to strive to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to strive to be a lawyer, or an accountant, or a doctor. Think about what's going to make you happy, and then put the time and the effort in to get yourself to that place.
That's extremely well said. Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
I just want to wrap up the interview there. Everyone, Neil Selfe, CEO of INFOR Financial. Thank you for your time today, and I really, really appreciate some of the insights you've shared with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.